Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we are here for another review while drinking some hot beverages because we are reviewing Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Now, spring is upon most of us. For here in Australia, autumn is upon us. And what better time to review this cozy book with some really good hot beverages than this one? Because this is probably one of the most famous cozy fantasy books out there. I bet that probably 95% of the people have heard of this book if they haven't read it. Everyone was talking about it a couple of years ago. And yes, I only read it this year because I don't really like to read things when they're at the peak of their hype because my expectations get high and then I get disappointed. That's one of the reasons why I haven't read Wind and Truth yet. So I only decided to read it now. I probably won't wait as long to read Wind and Truth, but so what can we say about this book? Like I said, cozy fantasy series, and it's a series. This is the first one, although I think all the other books are self-contained, so you don't need to worry about a continuing plot line. This one, at least, is self-contained. I don't know about Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is a book that was published after this one, and I'm not sure if it's actually a prequel or something like that, but hopefully they're all self-contained. This one was initially published in 2022 and it took the internet by storm. It was nominated for several awards like the Hugo, Nebula, Goodreads Choice Awards, amongst many others. Unfortunately, it didn't win any, but having nominations are very good still, and I bet the fame it had compensated for the lack of awards. On Goodreads, this book has over 268,000 ratings, just to show how famous it got. And it only came out 2 years ago. The score it has is a 4.08 out of 5, which is still good considering the amount of people that have read it. I can imagine that a lot of them wouldn't be the original fan base that this book is aiming at, and would probably just read it out of curiosity and not enjoy it as much as the people that love the subgenre. But let's move on with our housekeeping item, which is synopsis. I'm gonna narrate the synopsis here. If you don't want to hear anything about it, just skip to the timestamp, should be floating more or less there, and you'll jump right into the review of things. So I'll give you some seconds, should have been enough. Let's go. High fantasy, low stakes, with a double shot of coffee. After decades of adventuring, Viv, the York barbarian, is finally hanging up her sword for good. Now she sets her sights on a new dream, for she plans to open the first coffee shop in the city of Thun, even though no one there knows what coffee actually is. If Viv wants to put the past behind her, she can't do it alone, and help might arrive from unexpected quarters. Yet old rivals and new stand in the way of success, and Thun's shady underbelly could make it all too easy for Viv to take up the blade once more. But the true reward of the uncharted path is the travelers you meet along the way, whether bound by ancient magic, delicious pastries, or a freshly brewed cup, they may become something deeper than Viv ever could have imagined. And now with the synopsis out of the way, and since we don't have to look at scores of previous books, let's jump into the review of it, starting with plots. If you don't know what cozy fantasy is, I would say get familiar with it before starting reading, because not low fantasy, I mean it's kind of still low fantasy, but cozy fantasy means low stakes most of the time. It's low stakes but chill vibes, cozy feelings. This doesn't mean that there is no plot. There is a plot line that goes from the start to the end. But is this plot sufficient to hold the story, to hold the book itself? In my opinion, just barely. Whilst I think the plot had a lot of potential, it felt too small and too simple for my liking. To be fair, I don't have a big repertoire of cozy fantasy books. The only other cozy fantasy I've read is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. But even that one I felt was better, or the plotline had higher stakes, but not necessarily less in the cozy feelings part. I liked some of the parts of the plot in Legends and Lattes. In some sense, it felt like I was playing one of those old time management computer games that you slowly build and improve your business to bring more clients. I enjoy that, but the outer shell of the plot I felt was quite fragile, in sturdiness, let's say. So for me, this category is a 3 out of 5, but to be fair, it's a high 3. Now, moving on to characters, I think Travis Baldree did a great job at having distinctive characters and an evolution in development for Viv, our main protagonist. I would have liked a bit more of a change in Viv, but what we got was enough for me. The secondary characters, or the ones that joined the coffee shop, were all quite funny and cute and quirky, which I think is part of the whole cozy fantasy genre. They fulfilled their own niches and they had their own quirks, which kind of was the parallel of the children in The House in the Cerulean Sea. Now, I think that the villain was a bit less developed. Not in the same sense that I think Viv should have been developed, but I think the villain felt a bit two-dimensional. I think their reason behind their villainous was a bit superficial, and their dialogue was also reflecting that a bit. But since the evil part wasn't really the main focus of the book, it didn't matter to me as much as it would have in other situations. So for me, this category is going to have a 4 out of 5. Let's talk about world building, which for me was another category that disappointed me a bit. On one side, I understand that that is not the main focus of the book. Exploring the world, we're actually settling down and restricting our world to the coffee shop. But I do think there are other ways to build a world around you. I think Travis Baldree did well with the peoples. I could tell there were many different species, but at the same time, it felt that there were really just one individual of each species and not really a population of them. And on the other side, yes, we would mention places here and there, but at the same time, everything outside of the coffee shop felt more like a prop. One strong gust and it would have been blown away. In my opinion, there should have been a bigger reinforcement in trying to make the world around the coffee shop to be more real and more vivid. So as it stands, this category is a 3 out of 5 for me. But then again, coffee shop, very well described, very well organized, it felt real, and it was good. Now, what about writing style? I think this is where Travis Baldree excels. If there's a person that can create cozy feelings, it's definitely Travis Baldree. The prose of this book will create an atmosphere of coziness and relaxation. You will feel like drinking some hot tea, some coffee, some hot chocolate next to a window while reading this book. I think the pacing is also perfect for the length of this book, which in my edition, I think is just over 300 pages. If you want to know how to write cozy fantasy, I definitely recommend you to read this book and pay attention to the choice of words, the pacing of the sentences, and also the pacing of the story itself. So for this category, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. And finally, we have enjoyment. Like I said, I don't usually read books when they're hyped because I don't want to elevate my expectations a lot. So when I started this book, my expectations were very neutral. And I'm glad they were like that because I think if my expectations had been high, I would have been disappointed a lot. As it was, I was enjoying the book throughout. I was never super excited to read this book, trying to find excuses, trying to find the time to read it. But like I said, when I was reading it, it was definitely evoking the cozy feelings and I was feeling relaxed and I was enjoying reading the story. So for me, this category is a 4 out of 5. And so we finish our review. Just as a refresher, we have 3 for plot, 4 for characters, 3 for world building, 5 for writing style, and 4 for enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 3.8 out of 5. It's a bit lower than the Goodreads score because unfortunately this book didn't fulfill enough for me. I think it fulfilled the cozy mission of it, I cannot deny it, but I think for me, I needed a bit more substance in terms of plot and world building, which are 2 categories that I really put a lot of emphasis when I'm reading books. Between this book and The House in the Cerulean Sea, I would definitely recommend more The House in the Cerulean Sea, but nonetheless, I'm still very curious to read Bookshops and Bone Dust? Bone Dust and Bookshops? I think it's Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is the second book published by Travis Baldree, especially because who doesn't love bookshops? But anyways, tell me what you think. Did you enjoy this book more than I did? Do you enjoy The House in the Cerulean Sea more? Comment down below, and if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I'll be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays if my schedule allows, because currently I'm in Sydney and I don't have this backdrop here, so recording will be a bit different if I'm able to do it, but stay tuned and we shall see you again. See you soon.